I'll ask David to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Angela. We begin our session today by acknowledging that the land we are meeting on, Toronto, is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mishawaga's of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mishawaga's of the Credit. We also acknowledge the systemic discrimination of many groups face who call this land home. We particularly recognize people of African ancestry who were stolen from their homes and brought here as slaves. While slavery has ended, the legacy lingers. We must mention also the United Nations Declaration of the International Decade for the People of African Descent, which ends in 2024. The declaration carries the theme, People of African Descent, Recognition, Justice, and Development. As we discuss our matters this evening, let us commit to respect and to uplift each other, to tear down the barriers of justice, of prejudice, discrimination, injustice, and hatred that sometimes seems to be getting stronger. Let us resolve to love ourselves and each other and to build a just society for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you, Council. And at this time, we will ask our Council General, Sonia Marvel Carter, to give her open remarks. You know, I've always said I never asked Sonia if we are kind of related. I mean, you know, somehow we both have Carters on our names. So anyways, Sonia.
Oh no, Angela, you would probably have to be related to my ex-husband, but
well, that's it. Same here too. Same here too.
That's the counterpart. Good evening, everybody. I just want to welcome each and every one of you here. I want to thank you all for coming. And before I go any further, please let me acknowledge the presence of our High Commissioner, Glenn Clark. I saw him just now as I was about to speak. I saw High Commissioner Clark is on the call. So High Commissioner, thank you so very much for joining us this evening. As Angela would have said, this is part of the National Heroes Celebrations that we have in Canada, the Barbados National Heroes Celebrations that we have in Canada. And this is the penultimate celebration that we're having this year. We would have started with our church service, and that was held this year in Montreal. We continued with a two-part immigration seminar, and now we're having this event, which is the panel discussion. And we finish off on Saturday with our Unsung Heroes presentation, and this year it's called the Donald Moore Unsung Heroes presentation. So, you know, in order to get us on the road very quickly, because we have a lot to do in a short space of time, I just want to again thank everybody for coming out. I hope that this will be informative for you, and to let you know that you can see we're recording it, and we will have it available for you on our YouTube platform. We will put it together and post it on our YouTube platform sometime in the very near future, maybe within a day or so we will have that. And I want you to continue to check our social media pages, because the consulate has a Facebook page as well as an Instagram. And you should continue to check our social media pages, because it gives you lots of information as to what is happening, what Barbados is doing at home, and what's happening with Barbadians, and what is available to you here in Canada. Also, I will put the link in the chat, because we do have a form that you can complete if you are a member of the diaspora here, if you are studying in Canada, you're planning to come to Canada, or you're just visiting. There is a form that you can complete online, just to let us know at the consulate where you are, to let the mission in Canada know, the Barbados mission here in Canada know where our people are and where in Canada you are located. And I say that meaning not necessarily, you don't have to give your address, but at least the city and the province that you're in, and maybe what you're doing here in terms of the activities that you're taking part in, so that we could better meet the needs of our people, of our Barbadians here in Canada. So look out for that link that will tell you, that will give you the information as to where you can find the form. As I said, it will be a link that will go directly to the form. And I encourage you, like I said, please to follow us on social media, on Facebook and on Instagram. If you send your telephone number and you have WhatsApp, we also have a WhatsApp blast that we can add you to, and that will give you all of the information, like I said, that's happening, everything Barbadian that's happening in Canada and things that are happening in Barbados and other parts of the world that are Barbadian connected. So thank you so very much. And like I said, please enjoy and let's have a fruitful discussion. Thank you, Angela.
Thank you, Council General. Thank you. And, just a bit of housekeeping. I know, we just asked to keep muted while the speakers are presenting. If you have any questions, just write them in the chat. We are hoping to give you some time. It's tight, so we're hoping to give you some time to speak, but we'll see how that goes. We are going to, we want it to be interactive and very uplifting. So please be respectful in your post. We want this to be an uplifting and learning session for everyone. So without much further ado, let's get into it. So we have 7 panelists here today, and I will just mention their names and their profession, and then we're going to ask them the first question. So we have Ashley Haynes, who's a senior pension administrator, Emmanuel, Olympian, Gail Smith, attorney, Nadia Headley, entrepreneur, Joseph Callender, musician, Kerry-Ann Alleyne, senior research analyst, and Phil Broome, retired banker. So first question, as I said, this topic today is on Barbadian business professionals in Canada, opportunities, options, and observations. So the question that I'm going to pose, and I'm going to start in this order. I'm going to ask Phil, starting with Phil. Everybody's going to have the questions, 3 minutes, because we have tight times. So tell the audience a bit about yourself and your professional journey here in Canada. You have 3 minutes in which to talk about that. Starting with Phil.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Angela. My name is Phil Broome. I am presently retired from banking in the financial industry. And I am volunteering right now with the Barbados Canada Foundation as the president. I immigrated to Canada in 1981. I'm a graduate from the University of the West Indies in economics and management. And I also did my fellow of the Institute of Canadian Bankers degree. I have 45 years of service in the financial industry. I started in Barbados, and when I came to Canada in 1981, I had to take a step back as a junior analyst. And a junior analyst working in the Caribbean branch operations arm of the bank. However, I was sent on several small assignments of projects within the Caribbean, to Cayman Islands, Bahamas, and back to Barbados in my first year here. I learned quite a bit in the operations world because I had spent 10 years in Barbados in Scotiabank. I'm going to go through this very quickly. For the next 25 years, I continued working and studying and in Canada. I did the FICB, and I also did courses in the MBA program. And I also worked in implementations and systems in the international arm of the bank. And after 25 years there, I was promoted many times within the international operations and systems, and made it up to the level of the Assistant General Manager Operations, and then to Vice President International. My last assignment was Vice President Compliance International. And that's my journey so far in the bank.
Thank you, Phil. You're going to have the opportunity to answer some other questions. I will now ask Ashley Haynes, to speak about your time so far here in Canada.
So I don't have quite as extensive a history as Phil, but I actually came to Canada after sixth form. So I came up here for university. So I did my bachelor's at the University of Waterloo in math, and I minored in computer science and statistics. And I haven't worked in Barbados either, but I have worked at the Barbados consulate, and actually I've worked with most of the Team Barbados that's there now. And I've since left, and I now work at ECLER as a senior pension administrator. And so that role pretty much came about because I met a lady on the subway, and she told me I could bring in my resume. So I did drop my resume at the office with HR, and they're the ones that actually contacted me about the role. So I didn't actually apply for the position. And so that's how I've ended up here where I'm at right now.
And that is?
Pardon?
What's your position and where are you working?
Senior pension administrator.
Where?
At ECLER.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ashley. Next, I'll call on Gail. Gail Smith.
Thank you very much, Angela. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Gail Smith. As you heard, I am an attorney. That's not the beginning of my journey. I can indicate that in terms of higher education, I graduated from the University of Toronto in 1986, and I had a lengthy career in retail banking. Not unlike Phil, I did a number of courses, although not nearly as many. I had done the Canadian Securities course, I'd done financial planning course. I'd spent a lot of time in branch management and ultimately ended up underwriting credit. And it was at that time that I felt as though I had continually hit my head on the glass ceiling. I decided to go back to school, and I decided to study law. So I went to Osgoode Hall Law School, and I graduated from there in 2003. After a year or so having been called to the bar, I started my own practice. My practice is primarily criminal defense work, but I also do work in wills and estates, and I have begun to conduct mediations. So I have been able to participate in a couple of notable cases that have led to opportunities, and I know that we'll be speaking further about opportunities a little later in the program. And I have also been called to the bar in Barbados and Jamaica because I'm working towards alternative work environments and then ultimately retirement. So that's my journey.
Thank you very much, Gail. Okay, the next time we're going to have Joseph Callender. Joseph.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joseph Callender. I am a musician, a Barbadian music professional living in Toronto. I have about 20 years experience in music. I studied at the Barbados Community College. I went to foundation school before that. And after community college, I've been on tour with Arturo Tappan and various other musical groups around the Caribbean, at which point I earned a scholarship to come to Canada to study. The money required for the program was not the same amount as the money given in the scholarship. So I did a bunch of fundraisers, and I had some help from a team who helped me to get up here. I took out the student loan and stuff like that, and I completed school. But now I am a a music professional in Toronto. I do entertainment, where I provide musical services for various different events, weddings, birthday parties, surprise parties, nightclubs, orchestral events, whatever. And then I also do music production, which means I produce music for film and for TV for different musical artists. If somebody has an original idea, for instance, I can take that idea and write music around it, because I play about 12 or so different instruments, physical instruments, and then there's a whole bunch of virtual instruments I play as well. And I also am a music mentor. So I have a few students. I teach privately right now. I teach a lot of different instruments, obviously, because I learn a lot of instruments. And I'm getting into music therapy and broadening my, expanding my capacity as a music professional. So that's me.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joseph. And
No
we
problem.
have Kerry-Ann, Kerry-Ann Alleyne.
Hi, my name is Kerry-Ann, actually.
Kerry-Ann, okay.
Yeah, no
My apologies.
problem. That's okay. So my name is Kerry-Ann Alleyne. I currently work at FSRA. It's the Financial Services Regulatory Authority of Ontario. It's the provincial financial sector regulator. So it regulates like credit unions, pensions, mortgage brokers, and some insurance companies in the province of Ontario. I'm a senior research analyst there, and in the credit union and insurance prudential division. So what I do is I basically help draft the guidelines and the rules that the credit unions in Ontario have to follow. And I worked with FSRA since June 2019 when it started. And prior to that, I worked for DICO, which is Deposit Insurance Corporation of Ontario, which was the credit union regulator in Ontario. And that was from January 2019. So I recently immigrated to Canada. I came in October 2018. Prior to that, I worked in Barbados at the Financial Services Commission in research and policy, and I also worked at the Central Bank of Barbados. I was an economist in like the early 2000s, and then later in 2012, 2011, I was a bank examiner. So basically, I am what you call a career regulator. I did regulation pretty much all my life. I was also employed at UE, University of the West Indies, Cape Hill campus, as a part-time lecturer and a part-time tutor. I was a part-time tutor since 2004, a year after I graduated, and I lectured from 2008 until basically I left Barbados. What else? So courses I did like managerial economics, financial management, risk management. So that's what I did. And the reason I immigrated, I wanted something different. I was never in Toronto. I've never visited Toronto or anything. I was like, let me just try this. So and people thought I was crazy. They really did, because I was well established, or what people call the Barbados. So they thought I was crazy. I wanted something new, and I applied, and about 8 months later, I was in. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
I was having some Wi-Fi problems, so I thought it had dropped out. Yeah, so about 8 months later, I was in Toronto, a city that I've never visited. And about 3 months after that, I was working. Let's see what else. So that's about it, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So next we have Crystal Smith. Crystal Emmanuel. I saw her on earlier.
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Crystal Emmanuel. I'm a two-time Olympian, 15-time national champ and 200-meter national record holder. I was born in Canada, but I was raised in Barbados. I think that's where I got most of my speed from. But my journey here I would say was kind of smooth because I was born here. You know, I raced here on summers when my mom and my dad would bring me down. So my journey is really exciting because I get to go around the world representing Canada and getting all the experience. So I'm basically, my job description would be mentor. I mentor young females to stay in sport and stay motivated and not think that they can't do it because they're female. And I also go back to Canada and do Barbados, sorry, and do clinics. I help out with clubs. I do speaking engagements as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And next we have J.Nadia Headley.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you to Team Barbados here in Canada and the consulate for inviting myself and the other panelists on. You mentioned I'm an entrepreneur. In your introduction, I'm a social development specialist with a focus on education delivery services, particularly in the Caribbean. I would have started researching education and delivery services and mechanisms over 10 years ago, focusing first on Barbados and Jamaica with the hope and expectation to expand and be able to answer the question, what is it that our children need, as opposed to simply, you know, what works or what should we do? And in doing that, it's led me to a lot of different places. So I actually did not study in Canada. I studied in New York City and in Rome, Italy, before I went back to Barbados and then eventually moved here to Canada. I do own a business here. It's called 2114 Consultancy Services. If you've heard it before, those numbers, you'd remember them as the dimensions of our island. 21 miles long by 14 miles wide at our longest and widest points. And so it was my homage to our country. And with that, we're able to support nonprofit organizations by helping them to implement more business practices in their operations. And we support very socially passionate entrepreneurs who want to systematize their businesses and free up time in their business so that they can spend more time with their social passion and cause. Currently, I'm serving as the executive director at the Oakville Parent-Child Center, where we focus on early childhood education and development and support for parents with children between the ages of 0 to 11 in a highly inclusive environment that is accessibility, inclusion, ethnic inclusion, religious inclusion, and all the various, you know, boxes that we like to fill when they're older and we want to hire. We are looking at creating a practice, a social practice of inclusion as an attitude and a way of life for young children. And so my work has given me the opportunity to work with nonprofit organizations from really small startups to the world's largest nonprofit organization. So thank you.
Thank you very much, J.Nadia. So now we've heard from our 7 panelists and a bit about their journey, their career journey here in Canada. Next question I'm going to ask each of you is, you know, we constantly hear of barriers that impede the progress of immigrants seeking employment and in their upward mobility when they want to find a job, when they actually after they found a job. So, and this happens primarily with many racialized and marginalized groups. So what challenges did you face in obtaining a job, if any, or in being promoted? And how did you deal with any barriers that stood in your way? So, you know, what challenges did you face in obtaining a job or in being promoted, if you face any challenges? If you didn't, that's great. Still talk about how you maneuver that. And how did you deal with any of those barriers that stood in your way? Okay, and I'll start this time. Actually, Nadia, I'll start with you, seeing you were the last person. I'll start with you.
So I did not face directly any particular challenges when it came to securing employment here in Canada. A lot of my challenges were more around health or finances or more personal challenges. But once it was time to, you know, get out there and find work, I found for myself, it wasn't that much of a challenge. There was one time I shared with the team before, I didn't initially get a job when I went up for it. And when the opportunity made itself available, I was told it was because I was way too overqualified, and they thought I wouldn't stay with them. They thought I just use them as like a bouncing pad, and that I'd only be there for a few months and then I'd go. And so once I was able to express my passion for working with youth and for working in education and for wanting to just, set some roots here in Canada, then it was a much different conversation. So it wasn't an overlook in terms of my race or my background or anything like that. So my encouragement usually to young people, I say your ability to walk in the room and take command of the room starts with the small choices we make all through secondary school. And the types of leadership opportunities we make ourselves open to, and giving ourselves permission to be in different spaces, especially spaces that make us uncomfortable, and learn how to stand in those spaces. I've not directly faced those challenges, but I would say that getting kind of outside of my Barbados mentality it tends to be helpful. So for example, taking people out on informational interviews. I did share that with a couple of mentees on the island, and it was definitely not something they were used to, the idea that you could call up a professional and invite them out for coffee. And then I was told that coffee in Barbados is pricey. So, they came up with different mechanisms instead. But, to be able to tap into a professional and say, I'd love to be able to learn more about what you do and get your insight. And they came back and said that they were surprised how generous professionals are with their knowledge, which is what they found in Barbados and what I found internationally. People do want to help. And so kind of stepping out of some of our, lines of what's allowed and not allowed can be really helpful when you decide to move out of the island and come to somewhere like Canada.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, those are very good points. Phil, I'll ask you next. You went, as you said, when you came here, you had to step back, and then you went to the position of vice president. Could you tell us about what challenges you may have faced in your job and in being promoted, and how did you deal with any barriers that were in your way?
Sure. Thank you, Angela. Well, yes, when I first came to Canada, I was a graduate of the University of the West Indies. I had already done my degree, and I had already worked all the way up to the level of senior assistant accountant of our main branch in Bridgetown, Barbados. And then when I came here, the Caribbean operations manager who interviewed me, he for some reason thought that I should I should probably, go down even further than the junior analyst, actually. So I in my interview with him, I said to him, I immigrated to Canada, and I am should be treated on the level of the Canadian, and not thinking in terms of Barbados. So I then asked, because there were other Barbadians in the Caribbean operations. So I asked if I could speak with one of them, and I spoke with them, and they said, I don't know where this person is coming from, because really and truly, you were coming up here as a Canadian and not as Barbadian. Anyway, after chatting with the manager, he told me I will get the job as the junior analyst, and I will get the job as junior analyst. They just had to work out the whole process for me to come into the organization. It was still with the same Bank of Nova Scotia, because I had joined in the Bank of Nova Scotia. I had spent 10 years in Scotiabank in Barbados. And then I was just immigrating on my own. They didn't bring me here. So it was just working my way through the interview process with the various people. I could have gone to another area in audit, but the HR personnel manager, who was Barbadian at the time, said that I would probably do better if I stayed in the branch operations side. So anyway, I worked with this particular individual then he accepted, I got accepted the position, and right away he sent me back to the Caribbean for an assignment. The problem that I had with that is that the assignment he was sending me on, I had not been trained on the new system. It was to do with implementation of a new system, and I wanted to learn the new system before I went back to the Caribbean to teach someone. Anyway, that was my experience with initially with the person, because I think they were trying to I call it a challenge, but they were trying for me not to be successful. But I, the type of person that I was, I said, there's no way. So I read the manuals and everything and spent a lot of time understanding it. And then we were successful in the implementation. My boss at that particular point in time got all the accolades for it because it was successful. They never expected it to be going that smoothly, but it did. So one of the things I found was when you get a challenge, take up the challenge and really learn as much as you can about the particular aspect you're doing, especially when you're dealing with implementations. And that was the way I handled that particular situation. Later on, when the position of assistant general manager came up, I had already worked in probably like 5 different areas in the operations group. And I applied for the assistant general manager position. And the first part of the interview, it seemed as though I would not going to, the person who interviewed me, I should say, said, I needed some other aspects of it, because I want to know why I didn't get the job at the first time. And he said, I think because you hadn't worked in one other area of the organization. So anyway, I challenged it with HR at the particular point in time, because as far as the other applicants that were concerned, I thought I was qualified. Anyway, they did tell me that there was another opportunity coming up, and I applied for that particular one, and I was successful. And I would say this is that if at first you don't succeed, I think what you have to do is to understand how the organization works, first of all, and make sure that you know some key people in the organization, and keep up your work, make sure your work is of very high standard, and ask questions, ask quite a few questions when you join the organization. Ask questions. I found that to be a way to get around, because sometimes you find that even the supervisors themselves don't understand exactly what is what. They have been moving along, and when you ask the questions, it becomes, oh, that's a very good question. And what happened with me, I found when I did that, I was able to teach other people in the group what was happening in the department, and how to do certain things. So that was my challenge and how I dealt with that particular aspect of it. There are many other opportunities that came by, but
thank you very much. Wow. Okay, Ashley, I know you said you're a new one, but have you experienced any challenges as yet?
I would say in terms of barriers, I think for me, in terms of entering the workforce, the main issue that I would have had was lack of work experience. That's what I always said. So what I did have quite an extensive co-op program, and I chose not to do it because I was planning to move back to Barbados. So I was like, oh, Canadian work experience isn't that important. And then I ended up staying. So it kind of would have been nice if I had done the co-op program, because at least by the time I graduated, I would have had some sort of work experience. So I would say that was probably the biggest barrier that I had, was the lack of work experience in terms of getting that initial first job. I think in terms of like the application process, with submitting resumes online, like the way how some of them are set up in terms of having to disclose certain demographics, I don't know how really they are set up, but I feel like depending on how you answer or you don't answer, it could also have an impact on your resume progressing further, because I think they just need to meet a certain quota, and after that, it's like you could just get easily dismissed. But in my job right now in of itself, when I would have initially started, I was coming on a team that had at least 15 plus years worth of experience. So I was the newbie, and it was initially, yeah, a situation where it's like, oh, you know, she doesn't know anything to be able to just take on anything in particular to do myself. So I would say for me, it was a matter of pretty much saying yes to every opportunity that came up. And that way I was able to learn a lot more across different client teams. And yeah, so different client teams, different work itself, I was then exposed to. So that did help me whilst I was in my current position now. And I think also too, there are some senior persons that don't necessarily like to tell you why you're doing certain things. So for me, I don't necessarily like just doing things without knowing the why, especially if it's something like calculated related, because then like you do it now, but if I have to do it again later, I need to know how to do it. I don't want to be constantly doing the wrong thing over and over. So it was kind of having to be, you know, stick to the fact of I need to know why I'm doing something so I can at least understand it. And so I think that will be pretty much it in terms of barriers that I've experienced so far. But I don't think anything was ever racially motivated or based on my immigration status. I don't think I've ever experienced, like to my face and that I'm aware of, I've never had that particular challenge.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Kerry-Ann, what about you?
Okay. Hi. I don't think I had any challenges really. I think I was very fortunate. The only issue I really had was when I was applying first, I applied from outside of Barbados. So I thought maybe outside of Canada in Barbados. So I thought that was going to be a problem. So I stopped and then I applied when I landed. And persons were saying like they value Canadian work experience and you may have to do a survival job and things like that. But when I got here, I applied for the job at the ICO, the first job I applied for. Maybe they took like a month or so to contact me. So I thought maybe I didn't get through, but then they did. I think it was around Independence Week, because that's when I had my interview. And so they told me that, so I thought it was different. But then at the interview, I realized the sector, the credit union sector was pretty much the same. It's just like our largest credit union in Barbados had $1 billion in assets versus the largest one in Ontario had $30 billion in assets. But it was same heterogeneous nature and everything. And everything they did, we did in Barbados. So it was pretty similar. And they told me that I had made it to the next stage. It was a 3-stage interview process. So before the interview started, they told me I had already made it to the next stage. And that was a job that I was a little apprehensive because I had like no Canadian experience, no knowledge of the sector. And then when my interview finished around 5 or 6 that evening, they told me that I had made it to the final stage. They're not interviewing anybody else. And that they just wanted me to get senior management's approval. So I was like, okay, that was easy. And then when work started, I had just immigrated. I came in October, I started in January. There was a snowstorm, massive snowstorm on my first day at work. So work finished early that day. I was like, welcome to Toronto. That's what I was told. So I had a lot of challenges, adaptation challenges, leaving what I knew 30-something years. So, but I had a very accommodating manager, and he's still very accommodating today. And that made my process so much easier. Like I was able to work from Barbados during the pandemic. I'm actually in Barbados right now dealing with some family issues. I'm here for about 6 weeks. So they allow me, my manager is very accommodating, the organization is very accommodating, and I appreciate that, especially early on during the, when I first moved to Canada. It was a new culture, climate, everything was new. So it was challenging, leaving all my family and friends. And also the environment at FISRA and even DICE is very diverse. I worked with someone from St. Vincent, someone from, well, she's not from Trinidad, her parents are from Trinidad. There's someone from Haiti, Guyana. There are lots of Caribbean people and other immigrants as well. So it is pretty inclusive, and you don't really feel like segregated or anything. With regard to promotions, because of some health challenges, I haven't applied for any. And I'm pretty comfortable where I am right now until I'm ready to take the next step. But it has been pretty easy. So I haven't really had any challenges. I just a little bit of apprehensions at first because I was an economist, and they were like, if you were working in banking or maybe an accountant, you might find a job easier. So I was like, maybe I might take a while.
Yeah, we're losing you.
But can you hear me?
You're breaking up quite a bit. So
yeah, my internet connection is unstable. It has been dropping out all day. Am I better now?
Yes, you're better now.
Okay, yeah. So what I was saying is that the Canadian style, I don't even know what the Canadian style of the resume is, to be completely honest. I still use the style I had used from home. But what I would tell people is when you're looking for a job, just because you don't meet all the requirements in the job description or the job advertisement, still apply, because that's like the ideal candidate, but they don't necessarily get what all of what they're looking for. But you might basically have, well, you might be the best candidate or the best fit for the job. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Joseph, what about you? Any challenges, any barriers you face?
Yeah, a lot.
You only have 2.5 minutes though.
That's what I say. So I decided I would just read a list. I think the biggest one that I experienced, and I still experience to today, is racism. I had a classmate that used to make lynching jokes, for instance, and to have to go school to that kind of like every day, I get singled out in class sometimes. I'll give you one example. A student got up and asked, "How do you deal with competition?" And the teacher said, "I don't know. Joseph, how do you deal with competition?" And I was I'm the only Black guy in the class, and I've been playing for longer than a lot of the people in the class. So my experience shows, and there's a lot of jealousy in music. There's a lot of competition. My thought is the only competition that you should think you have is the you that you were the day before, or you that you were the second before the current moment, right? So I wasn't really watching people, but people were watching me, and trying to cut you out of gigs, there's a lot of cutthroat in the industry. Even though music is a very enjoyable and passionate career to follow, there's a lot of people doing kind of the same thing that you do. They do it differently, but so I was in a situation, because before I went to Humber, I had been on tour with Grammy Award-winning artists. I had been around the Caribbean. I had a lot of experience playing music coming from the Caribbean and having a totally different style as well. So I kind of stood out amongst the crowd. And another example, like I would get an assignment on Friday, and then on the Saturday and the Sunday, I would be in a rehearsal or on a gig with the same teacher that gave me the assignment. And then on the Monday, I would have to hand the assignment in to the same teacher that I just worked with for the same amount of money. So it was a cognitive dissonance for a lot of people around me, I think. Another one of the challenges I had was a financial challenge. Everybody knows that school is expensive, but as an international student, it easily gets twice as expensive or 3 times as expensive when you add meal plans and somewhere to sleep onto that. So that was a challenge, and just trying to think about school and think about work, and then think about where all this money is going to come from. The loans, you take out student loans, and the people you take the loan out from are writing you emails like, yo, when are you going to pay us back? And so, you're borrowing money from someone else. And, so there were those kind of challenges, homesickness, the climate, culture shock. I talk about the idea of competition too, but when you don't got a lot of money, you might gotta live in, you might gotta rent a place where you might be paying $400 a month for the place, which is really dirt cheap, but then your landlord doesn't want to get rid of the bed bugs or properly insulate the place, so it's really cold. Another challenge that I had coming through school was my divided focus. I felt like I had to look for work and do assignments, and there's a lot of writing emails and trying to get things to fit into place. Another one that was really hard was, even though I had a lot of experience going into school, and I was older than a lot of people in the class that they put me in, I was thinking that my transcripts and my work experience, my resume, when they saw that I was working and touring, and I figured it would put me into the bachelor's program one time. I had even flown in for my audition, and I did my audition in person so that they would know that I speak English fluently and not put me through you need to get English grade and all of this. I did the audition, and the teacher said, whoa, like you're playing better than some of my 3rd and 4th year students. I see no reason why you wouldn't get into the program. Like, for sure you're in, And then by the time I got back to Barbados, I got email of acceptance into a program that I didn't apply for. It's like a beginner's, like kind of intro to jazz program. And I wanted to get out of Barbados, and I wanted to explore a different place. My idea for going to school was not necessarily to stay in school, but to get to understand the industry and work with some of the industry professionals. So I still took, I guess you could call it debate, but every year cost me $14,500 Canadian. So that was really difficult, and I'm still working on paying those student loans today.
Okay.
I know you got going. So.
Wow, you do have a story to tell there, and yeah. So I know we have a question from the audience. I just want to get the 2 others, and then we're going to go to the audience and get more questions and answer your questions. So Crystal, we ask you the same questions about any challenges that you face and the barriers, and then Gail, I know you have a strong story to tell. That you answer that one after. Crystal?
Yes, I was raised, as I said, I was raised in Barbados. So when I came here, I had to go back to secondary school. That was quite of a challenge, because most of the kids were like, you aren't speaking English, like, what are you talking about? And like would tease me and stuff like that. That's one of the challenges. In sport, I had major barriers to get over, and I feel like I'm doing a pretty good job, because now I stand up for young girls that look like me. When I was back in the day, a coach looked at me and told me to look at the lineup when I'm racing. What do I see? And I said, well, I see girls that look like me. And he was like, no, what do they look like? And they had, if they didn't have makeup on, they had lashes on. If they didn't have lashes on, they had long hair. And he's like, yeah, exactly. So I had to change my appearance to be noticed. And I said to him, I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, I shied away from who I naturally was, you know, Afro, like doing funky things that I've done in Barbados when I was at school sports and stuff, and enjoying who I look like and what I want the world to know me as, to starting putting on makeup. I did my hair and I started to forget who Crystal was. And just so that I can probably wear the latest shoes that Nike has or Adidas have, or these big brands want you to have on. And I had to take a step back and say, okay, no, who is Crystal? And I remember looking back when I used to race in Barbados, and when I first came here, my hair was in poofs, like Afro, and enjoying the sport and not trying to change who I am so that I can be noticed. And I think for me getting over those barriers, it just made me a stronger person, able to step out into the light and tell the younger generation, like, don't change who you are to be noticed. Just be more powerful so they see who you are.
Wonderful. Great story. Gail?
Thank you very much. I feel as though I could have contributed to any of the stories that have gone before, so I'm going to try and keep it fairly brief. Unfortunately, I do feel as though I was met with a number of obstacles coming up, even starting in the banking industry, as I had said, given that I felt as though I was hitting my head on the glass ceiling. And part of what I meant by that was often I would apply for positions and know that I was more educated than the person who was interviewing me. And yet, for whatever reason, I wasn't necessarily getting the positions. So quite often when you're told something like you're not a good fit, that could mean any number of things, whether it's, you know, the level of education, or whether it's something cultural, or, as we all know, there are times when one is facing racism. I can indicate that once I got into law, I realized that it really was still very much an old boys network still, and there were barriers to overcome there. For instance, when I was applying for my articling position, it wasn't until I removed everything from my resume that indicated that I was Black, or that indicated that I was older than the average applicant. Of course, I had gone to law school as a mature student. So removing things that indicated my age or my race, it was only then that I got interviews and ultimately got an opportunity to article with a fairly large criminal defense firm. What I would say is that there is racism, there is ageism, there is discrimination against women. There's all sorts of isms that we face, and I feel as though I've faced most of them, as I indicated, either being overeducated at times, and then you run into persons who are displaying microaggressions, and they may not even be aware that they're doing it, and they may not know that they're doing it, or why they're doing it. What I would say to those coming up is that that's not your problem. That's their problem. Certainly, what we need to be able to tell the young people as they come up is to be willing to avail themselves of opportunities, and to seek non-conventional opportunities and non-conventional relationships, so that they can position themselves to stand out. We've heard other people talking about what it is that they chose to do or didn't choose to do in order to stand out, in order to conform, or in order to excel. And quite honestly, when you're in an environment where somebody's looking down on you because you are who you are, if you don't muster your internal strength and confidence, you're not going to succeed. So I certainly can say that having experienced a disadvantage has helped to make me stronger, has helped to make me a better person. I know now that, for instance, I enjoy very much working for myself. And I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not been turned away by a number of firms initially when I had finished my articling position. So while one can be humble, one can also be confident. And so I would say that don't let the disadvantage necessarily define you. Rise above it and seek help from those who've gone before.
Thank you. Thanks very much. A wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge here that, you know, from our 7 panelists. And, you know, we're gonna, Council General, we can ask, you know, if others have questions that they want to put in chat, or if you want to open up. But there's one here. Someone has asked, is it common for organizations to consider or hire you, you know, while you are in Barbados? So, you know, anyone want to answer that question? Is it common for organizations to consider or hire you while you're still overseas, not in Canada? And I guess this was based on Kerry-Ann, I guess, you know, that applied before she came over to Canada. I know some of this happens. So anyone that want to speak? It all depends on, I know it depends on your career, it depends on your qualifications and the job in which you're going. So anyone else want to speak about that?
I think I could offer a little advice about it. I'm not sure if it's the right approach or not. I would say yes, especially with the internet and with technology. There's a lot of capacity for us right from at home to do applications and send a lot of them out. I've done this before where I was looking for work and I would just do a Google search, like where are the bars, the restaurants, whatever, and you know, who needs this? What is the need that I am good at? And you know, who needs it? And just send those applications out wherever you are. Just close your eye, press enter, send it. And you know, see who bites. The more you put yourself out there, the more possibility there is for someone to grab onto it. And you never know, you just never know what's gonna happen. So I would say yes, you could get hired from anywhere in the world. It's just a matter of making the connection. And the more you increase that volume, the more possibilities of getting a yes. You know, you might get 40 no's, but you might get the one yes that, you know, lands you in the position that you really want to be in. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph.
No problem.
Council General, you want to say?
Yes, actually, I just want to add that I'm going to put a link in the chat so that everybody can have access to it. But some of these things were, this particular topic was broached in our immigration seminar. So the short answer to that question is yes. You can apply from outside of Barbados and you can start your process from outside of Barbados. That's the short answer. And I will put the link, like I said, to the immigration series that was done, and it gives a lot of information on that, as well as what, you know, what people do from the outside and how you would be able to access. And it gives you websites, it gives you links to the job sites that you can look at from in Barbados and see what is needed and if people are willing to hire you from outside, because they actually have to say that if they're willing to hire from outside, because it's a different immigration process. So some people are interested in doing that because obviously there's a cost attached to it. Some people are not, but I can put the links in the chat, like I said, so people are aware of the various websites and so on that they have.
Thank you very much for that, Council General. Okay, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Okay, Kerry-Ann.
Yes, I just wanted to add something quickly. When I started looking for jobs when I was in Barbados, I had already have status. It wasn't official status yet because I hadn't landed, but I had what they call a confirmation of permanent residence document. And the two jobs, well, I applied for a few, but the two that contacted me and one I had an interview for, that was with Bank of Canada, they had asked me if I was able to legally work in Canada. And before they saw me for an interview, I had to provide that. So I guess they would not have been interested in going through the process of hiring someone who was not out of Canada. And as Consul General said, it depends on the organization if they want to go through those additional steps. And I find that some of the bigger, more established companies tend to look for persons who already have status to work in Canada.
Yeah, I also know too, for those who are studying, that if you're here studying, it's easier, there's also a pathway to apply for permanent residence and to get, some working experience while you do that. So that is another pathway. I don't know if the consulate has information on that that they can share as well, but I know that there is a pathway there for students who want to stay. And I don't know for you, Ashley, how that was for you, because you came as a student and then decided to stay.
Yeah. So my process was pretty straightforward because after university, they have the postgrad work permit, and you pretty much could automatically get one once you've done university there, but it's just the length of time varies depending on your length of study. And then after that, it's pretty much straightforward to get the other paperwork, the PR and the citizenship. So I think when you come under as a student, it is, I think, probably one of the easiest immigration process you could get into Canada. But Canada right now is also very desperate for working professionals. So I think if you're coming straight into the workforce, there are opportunities, as you mentioned.
Okay, thank you. I know we're going into the home stretch. Are there any more questions from the audience? We could continue with the questions we have. Okay, so I'm going to ask all of you again. I'm going to combine these last two questions because we won't have time for all of them. So I know you mentioned some of you mentioned some of opportunities you had, and some of you provided some advice and recommendations. So I'm just going to combine this for each of you to answer. What opportunities, if any, opened up for you so that you took advantage of? What, when you were traveling, what opportunities did you that you see that you took advantage of? Some of you have mentioned some of it before. And also, what 2 or 3 recommendations that you would give to the audience, or especially young people or new immigrants that are starting out their career here or entering the workforce here in Canada for the first time. So an opportunity and some recommendations for the audience. And I will start with Crystal.
Yeah, so for me, because I'm in sport, I would say look into scholarships in Canada. We have York University, Ottawa, you have missing some, but look for universities that are looking for international athletes that are getting into sport. It's very important to get a lot of information on what you want to study, because they're big on sport, but also on education. So that could be your pathway into Canada as well. If you think you just want to do sport for a year, 2 years, but you want to do something in the education program, or you're looking for your dream job, I would say you can go, the easiest way would be a scholarship route and then branch off and just look into like the coaches. For me, I did not go to university. I went pro out of high school, which was kind of a blessing plus a curse. But for me, I want to get into early child care, build my own children's home, maybe in Canada or Barbados. So yeah, I think looking into scholarships to get you into Canada, and then branch off if you think that's the route you want to go.
Thank you very much. Kerry-Ann, what about you? What would you say? Any opportunity and that you took advantage of, if there is any, and any recommendations you would leave for?
In terms of opportunities, I'm not sure. It was just well, when I was looking for a job, I looked, I checked various websites and so on. Like I checked the regular ones, Indeed and LinkedIn. And then as I came from a regulator in Barbados, I knew of other regulatory agencies in Canada, well, in Ontario. So I had applied with I applied with the regulators in Ontario, DIC, I did Ontario Securities Commission and so on. So you just look in the field, just check the regular general websites, and then you can look at specific websites. I always think it's good to work for government. Government is always very stable. And those jobs tend to be like what a friend of mine called for life. So they tend to have their benefits and their perks, wonderful pensions and everything. So if you can get into government, it would be nice. And in terms of when you're looking at for jobs, don't be like discouraged by the CV, the long laundry list of things that people want. Just what you have, just if you meet some of them, just apply. You never know, because there might not, that's the ideal candidate, as I said before. So you don't know necessarily if you're the best or you have most of what they're looking for. And in terms of, I think Judith said this, when you apply, you can just send out as many as you can, because at least then you would get maybe one or more positive results. Because I remember I had quite a few interviews after I had accepted DICO's job offer. And I thought I had applied for so many jobs that I was like, why am I not getting any? And there was one more thing I wanted to mention. I'm just drawing back. In terms of the interview process, you know yourself best. They don't know you. So just when you speak about your experience and your work, your education, you know yourself best, and just try to put yourself in the best light possible. And when you tailor your CV or your job application letter, what I did, and I did this from Barbados, is you look for what they're asking, and you look to see, even if it's one project or anything you did, look to see how something you did in your current role or previous role matched to what they're asking you for. And that kind of shows them that demonstrates to them that you have a skill. That don't just say that you have this skill or whatever, look for a specific example to show that you do have that skill that they're looking for.
Okay,
even if
thank you very much. Nadia.
Hi, I'd say opportunities and recommendations would be about the same for me. Remember I mentioned that I work in the nonprofit industry primarily. So for me, it was volunteering. And that was volunteering on all levels. So from, doing whatever is needed with your hands, right? Somebody has an event or something simple, to being a board member. And just really choosing your flexibility. For me, it was also really important to focus on areas of my passion. I didn't move to Canada with the intention of working right away. I actually decided to stay home with my young daughter for the first 3 years. And so when I came, I wasn't actively looking for anything, but I still maintained my business in Barbados and the charity that I had started in Barbados. I was still doing that long distance before remote work was cool or fashionable. And so that also helped me to not have gaps in my resume. I was still active in the area of my work and my passion the entire time. And I felt good to know that I was contributing, to the country and to the young people at home. So that helped a lot. You learn a lot when you're in the nonprofit space. Small nonprofits are also an opportunity for you to shine, right? Because you get to touch everything, right? You get to be a part of everything. You're not pigeonholed into just, one type of expertise or experience. So it's a really good way to shine when you volunteer and work with relatively small nonprofit organizations. And my thing, as I encourage young people all the time, is really first, before following Kerry-Ann's advice and applying for everything, really hone in on that area of your passion. Like Mr. Callender mentioned, you know, there are lots of challenges that you'll face, but when you know that this is what you are meant to be doing, you'll continue to push, and you'll find your reason and your place, right, when you do that. So honing in on your passion first is something that I strongly encourage young people to do from anywhere, but particularly our young people at home, before you start venturing out. And then that will start, I would say, it opens doors for you that you don't expect. I agree on applying for things that your resume does not match. You know, the two positions I've held in Canada, my resume did not necessarily match. But again, once you have that opportunity to walk into a room and take command of the room, people see you and everything that you're bringing to the table, and your points of differentiation really, really matter. So volunteer, help out, learn, be passionate, be driven, be excited about who you are and what you do, and people feel that.
Thank you very much. Gail.
Thank you. So you asked two things, opportunities and recommendations. In terms of some of the opportunities that I have had, I can think of two in particular. When I finally got my first position after having finished articling, I had been referred to job posting that I myself had not seen. And I ultimately ended up doing a 6-month contract for one of Canada's top criminal lawyers. And it was both a blessing and a curse, in the sense that the workload was unreasonable. And I'm a person that works hard. So if I tell you that, you know, it was unreasonable. I ultimately had to say, look, Sunday is my day of rest. I go to church. I needed at least one day where the expectation was that I could get some rest. But I learned a lot about, you know, structuring a practice and vetting potential clients and that sort of thing. So it was advantageous in that regard. Another opportunity I can speak about is recently, I'm saying within the last 4 years or so, I had a particular client that was unfortunately situated in a way that many of the clients I deal with, especially the young Black male clients that I deal with, in terms of his experiences and so growing up here. And unfortunately, he was convicted. But what that meant was that led to a whole process whereby I was at the forefront of some report writing and taking into context various aspects of his life. This has now blossomed into something that a project or an organization has developed that is doing this type of work. Very recently, last month, the Canadian government has begun now to endorse this type of work. And as a result of having had that case that was originally appealed by the Crown Attorney and ultimately had to go to the Court of Appeal in Ontario, as a result of that, I gained some sort of notoriety that has led to getting more clients, but it's also led to the opportunity to write some resources for the province legal aid system. And so it has led to opportunity. So I've taken something that was an unfortunate circumstance, but had the opportunity to work with the senior counsel. We made this into something much bigger, and unfortunately, it has bode well for me. In terms of recommendations for some of the younger people, what I would say is this. Number one, if you can, find yourself a mentor, a good mentor, a mentor who's going to be willing to share their time with you, share their experiences with you, be willing to answer questions that you don't feel comfortable asking other people. A good mentor is going to do all of those things for you. So find yourself a mentor if you can. It may well be somebody who hasn't volunteered to be a mentor to you, but you asking them, it may help boost their confidence. For one thing, they may not have seen themselves as a potential mentor, but you raising it with them might be one of the best things that you could possibly do for you. And it may, in fact, bring them some joy. So I that's one of the things I would definitely recommend. If possible, find yourself a good mentor. Another thing I would say is depending on your area, of course, join professional associations, because that's where you meet people who are doing things like you are doing. You know, hopefully they're also similarly minded people. So if you join professional associations and or related social groups, it's not always that decisions are made or contracts are formed or ideas are born in a boardroom. Sometimes that happens, as they say, on the golf course or on the basketball court or, you know, in the movie theater. So by all means, be prepared to socialize with others as well outside of a professional environment. And I would say don't limit your interactions to, say, Bajans or racialized people. This is a big world, and this is a multicultural world, and the buzzwords recently have been things like inclusion and diversity. And so, you know, take advantage of that and make sure that you're known and you're part of the fabric that is making up this community, and show that you have a contribution to make. So those would be my recommendations.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before I go to the next person, if someone is asking if they can, if you all are willing to share your contact information. So I say, if you are, you can put it in the chat as well. Or if you don't want for everyone, you can go to the CG's office, the consulate, and leave it there. But if you're willing, you can put your information in the chat. You know, someone might call and ask you to be a mentor, so you never know. Joseph, what about you? Your so opportunity and recommendations.
Yeah, in terms of opportunity, I would say focus on your passion, carve your own lane. And there's a saying, never scorn the dreamer. Like, just think about where you want to be, think about the emotional aspect of what that looks like. If I achieve this, how would I feel? Feel that feeling every day and reverse engineer it. When you have that feeling in your mind and in your heart, I feel like a lot of passion and enthusiasm and work ethic flows out of that, and it helps you to find the opportunities, not just any old opportunities, but opportunities that resonate with you and your specific purpose. Because what I do that might be a good opportunity for me might not be a great opportunity for everybody else. That said, one of the challenges kind of exist on the opposite end of a scale where the opportunities exist on the other end. One of my biggest challenges, for instance, was finding the finances for it. And by being bold and going forward and asking for what I wanted and being willing to give things in return, like give my services for money, I was able to start finding a lot of those barriers move themselves, you know, in the whole thing. Earlier, I was talking about some of the issues that I was having coming to Toronto, and in those issues, I don't think those things happen to me. I think they happen for me in order to make me into a better and stronger and wiser human being. And it, up to today, still helps me to move forward and carve my own lane, carve opportunities in the space, in the music industry specifically. Apart from that, I know I said this before, but just don't be afraid. Especially if you got good intentions and you know you're good at what you do and you feel passionate about it, like write and send it out, write and let people know who you are, where you're coming from, and what your intentions are. And I feel like the more of that you put out, the more opportunities will come to you. Another thing is, and I like Gail for saying this, find mentors. Mentors help you so much to like not fall into some of the common pitfalls when walking along the road of pursuing success or pursuing a career. They have already experienced so much that you know, if you find someone who already understands the industry or understands the line of work, they can help you out. I want to touch on these just real quick.
Okay.
The school, when a youngster is leaving for school from Barbados or somewhere in the Caribbean, it could be a real daunting thing to have to think about the financial aspect of that. I don't have the answers to that, but student loans have been really good. And I know that the amount might seem like a lot of money, but I think sometimes with the right mental attitude, you can see that you will make that money back, and it will be more than worth it to go and get the education in order to, you know, build yourself up. So yeah, just find them opportunities by thinking about what you want to do and just sending it out there. Look on the internet, look for people who have those resources and try to get in contact with them directly. I like the going for coffee idea as well. So
Thank you, Joseph. Thank you. Ashley? Opportunity and recommendation.
Bounce off of one of Joseph's last points regarding the finances. An option 2 also is grants and scholarships. So you can check those out online too. There are options available to get grants or scholarships within Toronto or Canada that could also provide financial assistance. But yeah, so I just wanted to mention that off of Joseph's point. But for me, I would say one of the main opportunities that I've had is within my company, they're very big on professional development. So they do pretty much pay for all the study materials and exams that we would need to get any particular designation. So I would say as an individual, if you're able to afford it, I think doing any sort of professional development, any kind of courses that could help assist in your progression and the overall look of what you can do as a person, like not necessarily just your particular bachelor's degree, but if you have any extra qualifications to go along with it. I would also say networking is a very big thing, especially if you don't have like a big resume full of previous work experience. Especially here, there are a lot of networking groups, and I can't remember the name of it right now, but there is a particular website and app that covers pretty much every different kind of networking area that you can look into. So, and it is tailored pretty much towards your interest. It varies. So I think networking is a really important thing, especially here in Canada. One time somebody told me it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think for me, I found that to be very true. And I would also say to say yes to most of the opportunities that you come across, because even if it's not a paid opportunity, you still get some useful skills from it and experience that could be used later on in whichever career aspect you're looking at. Yeah, I think, yeah, that'll be about it for me.
Thanks. So Phil, I started with you and I'm closing with you of the thing. So what opportunities that you found open up for you and some recommendations before we close? We are getting close to the 7:30, but yeah.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Angela. All of the other panelists made some very good points. But one thing I would like to say is that the opportunity that opened up for me was to do with compliance. I was transferred from operations because of a mentor. I worked with a mentor, and that's one of the things that I would recommend very strongly for the young people coming up. Find a mentor, and as a result of that, they channeled me into an opportunity for the bank to do with compliance, and I had to deal with all of the bank's entities around the world, everywhere around the world, wherever the bank had its entities. I had to deal with all of these entities in order to comply with the FATCA regulation for the United States. And as a result of that, I was able to go beyond what the expectations were of the senior executive. And they wanted, at that particular point in time, they wanted me to come back after I had retired, but I wouldn't go back because of the number of years. I think it was very stressful. It was a very stressful time. So I just wanted to retire. But I had saved the organization a hell of a lot of money. And it was as a result of this particular opportunity, which I took up. And being the type of person that worked very hard, I was able to succeed in this particular aspect of it. As far as recommendations, I would mentoring is a very big thing for me. And as I think it was Ashley who said about finding organizations that you can connect with, that's very important. I will also say is that the Barbados, as the president of the Barbados Canada Foundation, we offer scholarships. And if you go to our website, www.Barbados Canada Foundation, we have coming up now, we are in that process where people can, students of Barbadian heritage, you don't have to be born in Barbados, but of Barbadian heritage, so your grandmother could be a Barbadian, and you can apply for scholarships. Right now, we are, this is the time for applications. You can go there and there's criteria set up and there's application forms. So I would encourage those people who are also looking to educate themselves, because it's very important. That's the other aspect. The other thing I would recommend is keep up with your education, because one of the things that they always use against you is, oh, you're not qualified enough. Or that to me was a form of racism, because I have two friends who I mentored, because I was a mentor for a lot of the Caribbean people who came up from Jamaica, from Barbados, from Trinidad. I mentored quite a few of them to help them to get through and navigate through a lot of the issues that we were having in our organization when they immigrated. So I would say find a mentor. That's very important, somebody who understands your organization. And other thing that you need to do is when you come into an organization, understand how it's structured. Make sure you understand how that organization is structured, the area that you're working in, and make sure that you are passionate in what you do, what you want to get to do, because people will push you off, try to push you off into angles sometimes that if you're passionate about it, get into it, do it, and do the best that you can. That's what I would recommend for the young people coming in. Find that mentor, and they will help you.
Thank you.
Also the mentor.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to the 7 panelists, to all of you for providing such rich information, for taking the time out to give of your experience and your expertise. And I say someone already said that they really enjoyed this session. I did too, hearing from all of you. And most of you have put your information in, and I know you probably get people reaching out to you. You know, so really rich information. I hope that the panelists, I hope that the audience would take have listened and would take advantage of what you have provided, that they would heed what you've said, and those who are there that are on the audience as well that can mentor others, please do so, because it's so true. You may have all of the qualifications, but when you come into the country, there are things you need to learn. And if you have a mentor that can help you maneuver, and yes, all of the isms, as Gail said, they're there. You may not encounter it, but they are there, and you need to make sure that you know and you recognize what they are. Don't dwell on them for them to be barriers, but recognize who they are, what they are, so you can maneuver. So please, just step up and just those who can be mentors and help others, and the ones who are new, please take advantage of what is being offered. And I know, CG, actually, I'm going to be handing over to you to close, but I see your hand is up, because you're going to have the last word. I'm going to give you the last word here, to really wrap up the session. I really thank all of you, and I appreciate you for taking the time out for being with us today. CG.
Thank you so very much, Angela. Actually, yes, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank all of the panelists. Of course, Angela, I want to thank you specifically. You did a very great job as moderator. I want to thank you. I thank all of the panelists. I thank everybody who would have attended, all of you who joined. I think it was a very rich discussion. And I just want to let you know that we have I have recorded it. As you can tell, it's being recorded. So when this is over, I will upload it to the YouTube platform. What I will do is, for all of those who have registered, your email addresses will be there. So I will send you all the link. So I will email everybody the link to the YouTube platform, but it is public. So once you go on to the consulate's platform, you will be able to see this, and you'll be able to share it with your friends to get some of this information. So those who missed out on it would be able to revisit, and they would have a look at this and get some of the information. I also wanted to mention very quickly that I know I saw some other questions and so on, and some crosstalk, and I wanted to let you know that, for instance, if there are people here, and I know you are in Barbados and looking to come up to Canada, and you're thinking about, I did put the information in there for the immigration seminars, which gives you the websites, like I said, that you can check to see what job vacancies there are in the various areas. And I think I saw Chantel, who is our immigration consultant, and she is the person who conducts the seminars, the immigration seminars. I think I saw Chantel join us, and she would be able to tell you as well, let you know that she would have said this in her immigration seminars. Canada is a huge place. So even if you're looking to come up to Canada, you don't have to think only about Toronto. You don't only have to think about the major cities. So you don't just have to think about Vancouver maybe, or Montreal or Toronto. You can look at other areas of Canada. And for instance, we know, like say, for instance, in Nova Scotia, there is a very big push for medical practitioners. So we have a number of doctors and nurses and so that head to Nova Scotia because they have a need. So I'm just saying, broaden your horizons. Don't just look, if you're looking at Canada, you don't have to concentrate just on Toronto. You can look at Canada in general, because after you have settled yourself, then you can move anywhere that you want to move. After you've, gotten your PR or whatever status you need, then you can move into other areas of Canada, but you may opt to stay in that particular area. So just saying that you can look at that and check those things out. Please, check out the information, like I said, on the immigration seminars. Please, I put also the link for Barbados Canada Foundation in the chat that will give you the information on the scholarships. I think somebody asked if the scholarships were available to those at UE. I don't think they are, right, Phil? They're just for people who are studying in Canada, aren't they?
Yes, on Canada, but Barbados.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not available for those who are at UE, unfortunately, but it is for those who are studying here in Canada. And I see Nadia has put her information in, and almost everybody has put their information in. So please make a note of that, take them down, take the information off if you want to be able to contact them. I want to thank the team who has put this together, because there are a number of people who work with the celebrations annually, and it's Team Barbados in Canada. So it consists of members of the High Commission, so officers at the High Commission, officers here in Toronto, and some members of the Barbadian associations as well have played a part. So I just want to thank each and everybody for the part that they have played in putting this particular event on today, and the others that we would have done in the past, and the one that we're doing on Saturday, and the ones we would have done in the past as well. So I want to thank each and every one of you. We're now at 7:38. Consul David Gibbs. Consul David Gibbs is instrumental as well in this particular event. This was, I have to say, this was his baby. And he was instrumental in putting this. He said, yes, we need to have a panel discussion on business, on the business professionals, the Barbadian business professionals. So Consul Gibbs, I thank you so very much for encouraging the committee to include this. And it went down very well with all involved. So thank you once again. And that's it for me, Angela. Thank you. And High Commissioner, are you still here? High Commissioner Clark, are you still here? Yes, High Commissioner Clark is still here. High Commissioner,
would he like to say the,
yes,
well, the closing
let me
remarks?
give him one. Let me give him 2 minutes. Sorry, yes. 1 minute, High Commissioner. I am looking to unmute you. There we go. Yes, you can unmute, High Commissioner, so you can. There you go.
Yes, good evening to everyone. I must tell you that I enjoyed the moderator, Angela, and of course the panelists. I thought that it was a very beautiful session, and I'm sure, Consul General, that this year will go far and wide. My biggest problem is that a number of Barbadians do not listen, and we have to listen to this thing, because the whole question of mentorship came out today, and I thought that that was a very good program. I enjoyed the contribution of all members, but I must say that one of the contribution from, I think, Joseph Callender, the musician, he felt that international students have to pay twice as much as the local students, and that is one of the things that we will try our best to look at, because I thought that that is a bit unfair if you want to encourage Barbados to come here. But there's a number of things that we have to look at from the mission to encourage an equal playing field, because I know that if Canada wants to help Barbados, there are a lot of ways it can do. But I think by and large, all the contributions were very, very well organized. I thought that this was a very good session. I enjoyed it tremendously, and I hope that more Barbadians go on your website, Consul General, in order to get this, because so many people call me from time to time. There are people, there are Barbadians coming here and doing all sorts of things. They're all professionals, and I thought that they should listen to your program, because it was very worthwhile. And the programs coming out of the consulate has been very entertaining and enlightening, and we would want to encourage all Barbadians, especially those that want to come here, because, you know, Canada is a lovely place, but where ethic is very important. And I am sure that all the professionals here have come here and have worked extremely hard. And that is what is coming true. Despite whatever you hear, I must say that I enjoyed all the participants, and I thought that it was very worthwhile. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner. Thank you. We really appreciate your comments there as well. So thanks, everyone, and really have a wonderful rest of the evening and the rest of the week, the celebrations for National Heroes Day. And I hope everybody, we probably should have given a quiz, you know, people should be able to name the national heroes of Barbados. I wonder if people could do that. We'll leave that for next time.
Next time.
And actually, I do a plug. I must give a plug, you know, for the celebration of Barbados. Here in Mississauga, we're going to have a road tennis community event coming up on May 18th. We are going to send that information to you, CG, so that you can share it with the thing. Because again, celebrating Barbados, road tennis, believe it or not, we haven't it here in
Actually,
Mississauga.
Angela, we have that information. We're going to pass it on. And we did a launch today as well in the York region. at the
Okay.
Bill Connor School. Yes, so we did, and it's on our social media page. So when people check out our social media pages, they will see all of that information.
Great, wonderful. So we're looking forward to seeing people there. And anyway, have a wonderful National Heroes Week and celebrations. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very
Thanks for
much.
having us.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Consul. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Blessings.
Thank you.